I still remember the exact moment my entire world cracked apart. The rain was tapping softly against the apartment windows while I stood in the bathroom staring at two pink lines in my trembling hands. My heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. I wasn't scared, not at first. I was happy, truly happy. For the first time in years, I felt like life was finally giving me something beautiful. I whispered to myself, "We're going to be a family." Ethan and I had been together for 4 years. We survived late rent notices, cheap dinners, broken cars, and endless promises about a better future. He used to hold my face in his hands and say, "One day we'll laugh about all this." I believed him. That night, I cooked his favorite dinner. Candles lit the tiny kitchen table while I sat there nervously twisting the edge of my sweater. When he walked through the door, exhausted from work, I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. "I have something to tell you," I whispered. He looked worried at first, but when I placed the tiny baby shoes in front of him, his entire expression froze. For a second, the room went silent. Then he stepped back. Not forward, back. "What is this?" he asked coldly. I laughed nervously. "Ethan, I'm pregnant." But instead of happiness, I watched the color drain from his face. His eyes avoided mine like I had suddenly become someone he didn't recognize. "We can't do this," he muttered. My smile slowly disappeared. "What do you mean?" I asked quietly. He ran both hands through his hair and started pacing the kitchen. "This changes everything. I'm not ready for this. We barely survive as it is." "But we'll figure it out," I whispered, already feeling my chest tighten. Then he said the words that shattered me. "No, you'll figure it out." I felt my knees weaken. At first, I thought he was scared. I thought maybe he just needed time. But what I didn't know that night was that he'd already made his decision long before I told him about the baby. And by morning, the man I loved would completely disappear from my life. The next morning, I woke up alone. At first, I thought Ethan had gone to work early, but then I noticed his closet was empty, his charger was gone, his shoes were missing from the doorway, and on the kitchen counter sat a single folded note. "I'm sorry, I can't live this life." That was it. 4 years together, reduced to one sentence. I remember sinking onto the cold kitchen floor while tears blurred my vision. I kept rereading the note, hoping the words would somehow change, but they didn't. He was gone. For weeks, I barely functioned. I worked double shifts at the diner, hiding morning sickness behind fake smiles. Every customer who complained about cold coffee felt like another weight crushing my chest. At night, I sat alone in our apartment, talking to my unborn baby. "I'm trying," I'd whisper through tears. "I promise I'm trying." But the betrayal didn't stop there. A month later, I discovered Ethan had emptied our shared savings account before leaving. Every dollar we had saved for years, gone overnight. That was the moment something inside me changed. The sadness slowly turned into clarity. I stopped begging for answers. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I stopped replaying memories that only destroyed me. Instead, I started rebuilding myself. I moved into a tiny studio apartment across town. I took online business classes after work while pregnant and exhausted. Some nights I cried from pure loneliness. Other nights I studied until sunrise because failure was no longer an option. Then one evening, everything changed again. One of my regular customers at the diner overheard me helping another waitress organize inventory problems. He quietly handed me his business card. "You're smarter than this place," he told me. That man owned a growing restaurant company. Within months, I was helping manage operations. A year later, I became one of the youngest regional managers in the company. Meanwhile, Ethan's life was falling apart. Mutual friends slowly revealed the truth. The woman he left me for had drained his money and disappeared. He lost his apartment, lost his job, lost everything he once thought mattered more than me. But what hurt the most wasn't his betrayal anymore. It was realizing how little he believed in me. He saw pregnancy as the end of my future. I turned it into the beginning. And 5 years later, fate placed him directly in front of me again. I almost didn't recognize him at first. I was attending a company charity event at one of our newest restaurants when I saw a tired-looking man standing near the entrance in a wrinkled suit. Then he looked up. Ethan, the same man who walked away when I needed him most, now stood frozen, staring at me in complete shock. But I wasn't the broken woman he abandoned anymore. I stood there in a fitted black dress, holding my son's tiny hand, while employees greeted me with respect. "Good evening, Miss Carter," they kept saying as we walked through the room. I saw Ethan's expression slowly collapse. He looked at my son, then back at me. "That's mine?" he whispered. I stayed calm. "Yes," I answered softly. For a moment, his eyes filled with regret so deep it almost looked painful. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I was scared." I nodded, slowly, because, honestly, I already knew that. But fear doesn't excuse betrayal. He tried talking for several minutes. He apologized, he cried, he told me he never stopped thinking about us. Yet the strangest part was this. I didn't feel anger anymore, only peace. Because the revenge I once dreamed about never came from destroying him. It came from surviving without him. I looked down at my little boy smiling beside me and realized something powerful. The life he abandoned that rainy night didn't disappear. She became stronger. And the baby he feared becoming responsible for became the greatest blessing either of us could have ever known. Sometimes the people who leave us believe they're walking away from something worthless, but life has a strange way of revealing the truth later. Because the woman he abandoned that rainy night didn't disappear, she became stronger. And the baby he feared becoming responsible for became the greatest blessing either of us could have ever known.